the mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. And you're listening to InYourHeadOnline.com. These guys are unbelievable, baby!
All right, we have returned, and we're joined by the excellence of execution. Bret, the Hitman Hart, welcome to In Your Head.
Nice to be with you guys.
Yeah, let everybody know, of course, the book Hitman's out, and you can also get it now in a paperback in the United States. We're going to be giving out 6 copies of that tonight. Let's get to stuff. Piper was just on Raw this week, and you talk a lot about Piper in the book. And I've always read that was like the first time he ever did like a clean job to anybody in WWE when he lost the IC belt to you. Was that the case?
To my knowledge, that's the case.
Yeah. You talk a lot about in the book that like he really helped you. Do you think that was something that really helped you, like agreeing to lose the title to you?
Just in everything else. I mean, I think Roddy always set a good example and raised the bar kind of thing. But I think I learned more from Roddy just in sort of advice and how to negotiate and what you got to do to get up the next rung of the ladder kind of thing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get more. I remember him telling me you got to do interviews. You're not going anywhere until you get interviews. I remember, finally we got 4 interviews or something like that. And it was like, he was helping. He helped us, me and Neidhart. He helped us before we did those first interviews, just what to do and how to, and to make sure we did them well enough that we got asked again, to do them again.
Mm-hmm.
That was at a time when a lot of guys were just bad on interviews, like the Bulldogs in particular were really bad on interviews. So you needed to be good on, like, especially as heels, we needed to really at least knock the door down and get interviews.
Mm-hmm. Was that unusual at the time, like some of the veterans helping you out, or were most guys helpful?
A lot of guys were helpful, I mean, I don't know anybody that wasn't. But there were so many guys that were so good. Guys from, like, Hogan in particular was really good on those interviews for that time period. With a lot of emotion, a lot of adrenaline, arms pumped in the 22-inch pythons. And, there was a lot of guys that could really cut promos, Orndorff and Piper, And so sitting there watching them do interviews could be very intimidating to guys like me who were sort of would sit there and go, I can't come close to doing interviews like that.
Mm-hmm. Now, throughout the whole book, you're really honest on everything. Has anyone, like, since the book came out, came to you and, like, mad about anything in the book? Nobody's expressed to me any particular dislike about anything I wrote. Yeah.
Other than I've had some people say to me that they thought I was more hard on myself than anyone else, and I know a lot of people that somehow got the impression, which I think isn't true, and it goes against everything that I did write in the book. But there's some people that sort of perceived, I think, from some bad media that came out here up in Calgary, where there were, I don't think it was even intentional. I think it was just sort of came across that my father, I portrayed my father as a bit of an abusive kind of dad, and I think I know some of my brothers and sisters I don't think ever did read my book because they thought it was some kind of negative book about my father, which if you read enough into it, you find out that I think the whole book is a tribute to my father.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I think I don't know how anyone can take much issue with anything I wrote, be it Ric Flair or Shawn Michaels or Hunter or anybody that you could think of that I wrote about. Maybe I didn't write the most favorable things about him, but everything I wrote about is exactly the way it happened.
Yeah. There's something I always wondered about Flair, because, he always talks about the Montreal screw job, like everyone does, and probably always will, about, like, Vince did the right thing because you could have took the belt to WCW, but he was a guy who brought the WCW belt to the WWE when he came in. Like,
yeah.
What do you think about that?
If you look at Hogan or Flair and most wrestlers that were put in a situation like the one I was in, they always put their own interests first too, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that because you're an independent contractor and you have a right to protect your own business interests. So I know Hogan over the years, like even with me, refused to work with me and drop the belt to me, which had changed a lot of things for me at the time. But that was his position to do that, and there was nothing I could do about it, and nothing Vince could do about it either. And it was like there's a lot of situations where this wrestler refused to do that for, like, I don't even know, like Flair, maybe when he lost the belt to me the first time, maybe he, at his insistence, it couldn't be seen on TV. I don't know. But everyone has their little lines that they draw in order to do business with someone like Vince McMahon. And everything I did, I think I put it in pretty good detail and really put you in my shoes. And if you really feel after you read my book that I should have done things differently. I mean, my feeling is that the more you sort of read my account of things, you see that there is no made-up stories, and it all checks out, and you know, it's pretty detailed. You couldn't make it up the way I wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think, you know, I had every right, not even just from Vince's initial contact with me, like. In reference to him not being able to pay my contract, and that he may have to let me go, and I may have to, he's going to help me go to WCW and all that kind of stuff. You know, he was coaching me along, and he was helping me, you know, or trying to, or pretending to. You know, all I was trying to do was leave my head up, and what happened with Shawn was, you know, I don't know if it was a case of, you know, both of us being manipulated to end up in that situation or not, or just egos. I know that the belt changes a lot for people.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always changed everybody, including me. It changes you while you have it, and there's a certain, you know, inferiority thing that you start to feel like you're the most important guy in the company, and that's what the belt sort of is supposed to signify. And
yeah.
You really try hard to live up to that.
You think you need a bit of an ego to make it like a top guy in wrestling?
Oh, yeah, in anything in life. I don't think if you don't have some kind of an ego, then that basically means you don't have enough confidence. And I don't think, you know, I know I'm probably as guilty as anybody having a fairly big ego about my wrestling and stuff, but at the same time, I think I'm pretty humble about what I represented in wrestling, and I think you have no other choice but to self-promote yourself sometimes, when the only people that are experts about what you're doing are people that are not expert, that are not really qualified to be, you know, they're not really qualified to be assessing it because they don't even know all the facts. Like, even like we were saying about Survivor Series, you know, I've always bring up Tito Santana put in his book that I should have just done it and shut my mouth and just, you know. But the truth is that Tito Santana couldn't begin to imagine what it was like to be in my shoes. You know, I always had a lot of respect for Tito, and I still do, and I respect his opinion. But at the same time, he didn't have a hockey team named after him. He wasn't like a Canadian hero. If he was maybe a hero in Mexico, he might be able to evaluate that and go, wait a minute, you know. If I was a big superstar in Mexico, would I do it? You know, would he allow them to sort of tear him down in front of everybody and do it because they basically own you, kind of thing? I never saw it that way, and I still don't see it that way now. I look at everything I did, and you know, I think that's what gives me the pride that I take in all that, is that I can look myself in the mirror and go, you know, I did everything the right way. I really did. I was a company guy, and I was a straight guy, and I tried to look out for my family, and I was very clear with everything I did with Vince McMahon, and you know, even in my turning down the money that I got from WCW in the first place, you know, it was pretty fair when you consider all the other guys that just left. You know, I only brought it to his attention that this is what I was being offered, and allowed him to make his pitch at me of what he would, you know, that I didn't want to go, which I never did, and what it would take for me to stay. And he's the one that made the offer to me, and I said, that's fine, I'll take less. You know, I don't know how many guys would turn down $2.8 million and take 1.5 just because you like the guy.
Right.
And I think when I did that, and when he betrayed me after that, and when I punched him out, a lot of it was for that. I really, I was a company guy.
Mm-hmm. Inchman, do you got a question?
Yeah, I actually have a question from the message board. D Massive, he'd like to know, how was it working with Brian Pillman in the Hart Foundation?
That's a good question. Brian was, I wouldn't want to say he was a mark, but he was so excited about working with me and Owen and Davey and Neidhart and the whole Hart Foundation thing. He really loved the whole concept. He was, I think from the time he came into the WWF, right from the very beginning, he kept trying to, looking forward to hoping that something might involve him with me and with Steve Austin and Owen, and that something would break in some way with all of us, or some of us, and when it all kind of happened, and Brian became part of the Hart Foundation, and we'd be all walking out there, he was the happiest guy of the. It was all kind of a rush, I think, for all of us, but he was a really happy. It was a happy time for him. I just think maybe the pressure got to him in the sense that people expected more of him, and he felt a little bit. Maybe felt deep down, he felt a little bad that he couldn't do more because of his ankle, and I think that I know that whole period where just before he died was a really tough time for him pain-wise, and he was dealing with pain. He was taking way too many painkillers, and it was all about living with the pain that he had and not giving into it. And, you hear a lot about these wrestlers that take these painkillers and stuff, but a lot of them aren't in as much pain as they think. They got drug addictions, But Brian Pillman was the guy that was addicted to painkillers because of the pain. He was in a lot of pain before he died.
Mm-hmm. Actually, in your book, you talk a lot about drugs, and you say that coke and steroids weren't as dangerous as painkillers are. Do you think that steroids are bad for wrestling, bad for athletes, or what is your stance on that?
Yeah, I don't know that I ever said cocaine and steroids weren't dangerous.
Well, you said they weren't as dangerous as you said the painkillers were the most dangerous of, because everyone knows the other ones are,
I think anything, a lot of when you're getting into any kind of addiction of something that will kill you, they're all kind of on the same level after a while. But the cocaine, if you look back at most of the guys that had cocaine problems, a lot of them are still alive today, so I don't know. Not that cocaine is any kind of great ride, because it's a bad ride, too.
Yeah.
But the painkillers were the biggest problem, because you could drug test for cocaine and catch guys, and there was lots of reasons not to do it, whereas with painkillers, these guys would take painkillers, and by the time they got tested the next night, it's all out of your system, so it's irrelevant. Like the testing, they're going to catch guys, they're going to clamp down on these wrestlers for marijuana use or cocaine use, which was, I welcomed the cocaine testing too, and the steroid testing eventually. But at the same time, the painkillers, I remember when they started, even marijuana was taboo. You couldn't be, any trace of marijuana was, they'd fine you and punish you more than the actual law does, And so around the time that they really got heavy with the wrestlers on marijuana, that there was a huge increase in wrestlers drinking alcohol, hard liquor, most of it, and taking downers to sort of make up for that sort of need for sort of zoning out from your life and your job just long enough to keep doing it all the time. And, I think when I look back on my career, and I wrote pretty honest about all my indulgences, whether it's what drug I was using or my use of steroids for the short time that I was on them, things like that. But I really look back on my career and I go, I was so lucky to have escaped any serious drug addictions, whether it was cocaine. Cocaine was an epidemic in the late 80s and early 90s of WWF, and not just wrestling, probably football and baseball and all kinds of places. And I don't know, I remember, the reason I wrote about my involvement with stuff was that I was human. I was a young kid then, and I could easily fall into that, onto that road and got run over pretty easy. And I was lucky that I skirted away from most of the real dangers And when I look at myself today, I'm grateful that that I was able to avoid being a tragedy like so many of my lost friends, like Kurt Hennig and Rick Rude and whoever.
Barbie, you got a question?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about ego or pride earlier, and is there any direction in which it makes sense the way WWE seems to want to break guys before they make them these days? Is there any situation that actually helps the business?
I don't know. I don't think it can help. I don't think it. I don't know if that's their agenda or not. Sometimes, I know in my case, I sort of struggled for years to kind of get any kind of a break and never really got it. And I think when I finally got it, I had to kind of fight pretty hard for it. And I didn't really get a break until till '92. Them being tag champion a couple of times, and even then we didn't hold the belts very long as tag champions, and we never really had our real run. I think I always look back on it and go, if I'd been made sooner, I might have had a quicker rise and a shorter, I might have been gone quicker. I would have been moved on quicker. I think that sometimes it's all timing. You got to take the good with the bad, and most of the time, it's like I tell everybody in wrestling, and maybe it's good advice for young wrestlers today, is that you can't stop talent. They can try to destroy you and try to beat you and try to pin you down and give you it's when you take, sometimes the worst things are guys that fall victim to changing a good character and going into a Tito Santana going into the Matador, or a one-man gang turning into a team. They can talk you into doing a gimmick that turns out to be the kiss of death to your career, and they move you on after. Sometimes just, I look back at my career, how easily I could have been Cowboy Bret Hart, and I probably, if I had been Cowboy Bret Hart, you might be talking about me today like you're talking about Corporal Kirshner,
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's just, you don't know what decisions to make. But as far as talent, I think it only works in WWE's or any wrestling company's best interest to utilize their talent. The only place that didn't know how to do that was WCW. They could take the best wrestlers and do nothing with them, and that was the nature of that company. And I think you'll see a lot of that same thinking reflected in where TNA goes in the next 6 months.
Yeah. Do you think that's a good idea for TNA to bring in Hogan and Eric Bischoff in 2009?
I think it's the kiss of death. I think it'll kill the whole business there. It'll be the end of TNA. I think guys like AJ Styles and some of these guys have been carrying the company on their backs these last few years. If they start to get, squeezed out by Hogan and Neidhart and some of these old names coming back, you're going to see an uprising of that make that little interview she did on TV a few weeks ago, that the owner or whatever.
Yeah, Dixie Carter.
Yeah, the whole thing is she could lose everything she's got with the wrong guys. And I think Bischoff hasn't got any ideas, and is an expert about, when it comes to being an expert on wrestling, has absolutely no knowledge or ideas for wrestling, is empty in the head. And Hogan only had ideas for Hogan, and the only one that's going to benefit from Hulk Hogan being TNA is Hulk Hogan. Except for I think the American public in general is a little sick of Hogan and the whole thing that happened with those tape recordings and stuff from this kid in jail and stuff like that. I think all that really tarnishes his image a lot. And the whole thing with his wife. And it's unfortunate for Hogan. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of Hogan's, but I also think that he's a better guy than what he's got. But at the same time, I think the wrestling world could give a rat's ass about what he does in TNA.
Yeah.
I think after a few months from now, you'll see that his ripple effect there will be nothing but just a big, giant, colossal waste of time.
Did you see the Dixie Carter speech?
I thought, yeah.
Did you think that belonged on TV? You think it helped
No,
out?
I thought it was a case of, I don't know much about Dixie Carter. It seemed like someone that liked to hear herself talk.
Yeah.
And it might have been entertaining for her, but I don't think it was entertaining for wrestling fans. I don't think it was entertaining for the wrestlers.
No, we spent all week talking about it. I don't know, it made me feel bad for all the wrestlers there, which isn't really what you want to see when you're watching the wrestling show. Just them all being talked down to the boss.
Well, I think there's got to be a lot of wrestlers that are just, they can see the writing on the wall, and they're starting to look at their options. And I'm sure a lot of guys, they'll wait and see a little while and see if maybe Hogan can make a positive difference kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I think you're going to see over time that he's got no ideas for anybody else, and the only ideas he's got are the same kind of old, stale Hulk Hogan ideas that he had in WCW, where we would have two managers holding each by a boot, and somebody blowing a blowtorch in his face and throwing salt in his eyes, and he's still making a comeback. It won't be any different than what he's been doing the last few years. And it's like, and once you've seen one Hulk Hogan thing, it's like, as far as Hogan and Bischoff coming up with a finish for AJ Styles, I have to see it to believe it. I don't think they're capable of it.
You think there's anybody there like he could work with and like have like a good match? It's really different styles.
I'm sure there's lots of guys like AJ Styles could, but I mean I don't know that he would complement their styles very much.
Yeah.
Maybe someone like Abyss. I mean Hogan he's going to look for giants. He's going to look for big guys that he can drop the leg on. So
right.
I think Abyss would be a good candidate and probably could carry Hogan and give him a match and all that. And even Samoa Joe and those guys. Some of the bigger guys will work with him, and of course Hogan will probably bring in an influx of his own big names like Beefcake and Neidhart and Valentine to work, and maybe Brian Oz and him will work an angle.
Yeah. We're going to get to a couple of callers here, a lot of callers tonight. Let's get John's on the line. You got a question for Bret?
Yes. I do have a question for Bret.
Right. Let us hear.
I want to compliment him on all his years of amazing work and just flawless execution. Gorilla Monsoon had it right when he called him the excellence of execution. What are his thoughts on Ring of Honor and the talent pool there?
I really enjoyed my working relationship with Ring of Honor. I really liked the wrestlers. I liked they worked their asses off. I mean, they worked really hard, and they left it all on the field kind of thing. I really thought every match, every wrestler did everything they could think of to give everyone the best match possible, and they really put a lot on the line. And they worked really hard, and they worked hard, and the promotion is a little company that's dealing with, it's trying to hold its own against guys like TNA and Vince McMahon and WWE and all that, who've got a hell of a lot more money to work with and throw around. Guys like Ring of Honor, they're another step up for young guys getting into business and stuff, a place to cut your teeth on the sort of the new styles and new moves. And they always got a lot of innovators there. And I have nothing but respect for the whole company and really enjoyed working with them. And I look forward to working with them again.
That was going to be my next question. Would you possibly go back, and what type of role would you like to position yourself in within the company if you go back?
Oh well, I think I'm limited to what I've been doing with them. Mm. But in a dream world, it wouldn't be might be kind of fun to work with some of the wrestlers on the matches themselves and help them put a card together and work with their show and where they go as far as television and things like that. I think they got a good product and they got a lot of great wrestlers and they got a good heart, and I'd like to see that company get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Thanks for calling in, John. We got a lot of callers.
I think it would be interesting to see Bret as Booker too.
All right.
All right. Have a good evening, gentlemen.
Yep. We got James on the line.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I'll be real quick. I know there's other callers. Bret Hart, I wanted to say it's an absolute honor to be able to speak with you. You are my absolute hero. I started watching wrestling in '92, me and my cousin Pat and my mom, and you are our absolute favorite wrestler. We ordered all the pay-per-views and went to a lot of live events to see you, and you never let us down. I wanted to ask a question you haven't been asked a million times, so I was thinking, if the Hart Foundation from '97 was still around today and you had to add another member, who would it be? I was thinking Chris Jericho would be really good in there, but...
Yeah, Jericho would have been good. Even Edge could have been good. If things hadn't gone the way they did for Benoit, he would have been ideal.
Oh, yeah.
And even, for that matter, why couldn't you throw someone like Harry in there now?
Definitely.
Harry or TJ, or both of them, or all of them for that matter. It's fun to think about in a sort of fantasy world of wrestling that, of all of us being together still, and, Davey and Owen and, all of us still, who knows what kind of storylines could still be working. I always wonder what would have happened if things had gone better in Montreal and Survivor Series, and maybe Vince had decided to work with me rather than against me. And,
yeah.
I might still be there today doing finishes and working in the, on the creative side, and maybe having much more input on where the wrestling's gone the last 10 years and where it is. I think I would have made a big difference to wrestling.
Thanks for calling, James.
Thank you very much. I can't wait to read your book. Have a great night.
Thank you.
I got Scotty.
Hi, Bret.
Hi.
I wanted to ask you, if it wasn't for your condition now and you were on good terms with Vince and them, this is a match that I would definitely love to see, you and Randy Orton at WrestleMania. Would you have been willing to do something like that with Orton?
I would love to have worked with Randy Orton. Maybe of all the wrestlers today, I think, I always tell people if I could have one match, I'd like to have it with Kurt Angle. And I still give Kurt that first slot kind of thing. But if I could have another match, Randy Orton would be at the top of the list. I would love to work with Randy Orton.
Thanks for calling, Scotty.
Thank you. And it's an honor to talk to you, Bret. I've been watching you since I was a kid.
We're going to go one more caller. Sorry anybody else has been calling in, but we can't take 74 calls, but unless we kept them here all night. Joel from Portugal.
Hello there. Hello. Good evening, Mr. Hart.
Hi.
Hi. I have two questions really quick.
Let's make one good one.
Oh, one good one. Okay. You wrestled against Tiger Mask 2 Misawa a couple of years ago. I want you to give your opinions about him, and especially because Misawa died a couple of months ago, and it's been really tragic. Your experience of working with Misawa, that's my question.
I didn't know very much about him before I worked with him. And when I did work with him, he was... I'm not sure if he was up for the match or maybe unhappy about maybe doing the job, or I don't know. He just seemed a little sluggish in the match, and maybe might have just been the style, Japanese style. Might have been him getting adjusted to the working with the mask. I don't know how long he'd been working on it as the Tiger Mask gimmick, and maybe I don't know if he loved that gimmick or the match we had was pretty good under the circumstances, considering the fact that. We had to go, I think, 20 minutes through, and we had never worked with each other. And I think he had a kind of, it was always hard working with a mask guy that can't show expression and things like that. And I don't know if we would have had better matches later on, but I think we could have had better matches in a different circumstance than what we had. I still think it was pretty good under the circumstances, and I know that we gave her all, and I always, when I think about what happened to him, how he died, it's sort of what I always said. For example, Dave Meltzer always used to rave about the Japanese wrestlers, and I got taught by Japanese wrestlers, and they have the best technique, and they really do teach you wrestling. But in Japan, there's a sort of shoot psychology where they do all the moves for real. Like they'll throw you in the ropes and try to drop kick you and knock all your teeth out, and that's just how they wrestle over there. If they can slam you through the floor or do a neck breaker on you, and there's just so many things you got to watch out for. And it didn't surprise me that unfortunately it was Misawa, but I've always thought that somebody's going to get killed over there. I can remember Japanese wrestlers grabbing a headlock on them, and the first thing they did was take you back and drop you right on your head as hard as you could. And the only reason I didn't break my neck was because I had a strong neck. And you just learn that that's the way they wrestle in Japan, and to me, didn't make them the greatest pro wrestlers in the world. Just made them the most fit, the most just reckless wrestlers, maybe in some ways. And it doesn't surprise me that someone broke their neck after all this time.
Thanks for calling, Joel.
Thank you, Mr. Hart.
Just, real quick, because I was at this Royal Rumble. I was there live, and it was you and Luger win it. And we all started booing Luger. We're all cheering for you. What went through your mind when that was going on?
Well, it's like I wrote in my book. It was basically, which I don't think you can cite another one of those kind of situations, but it really came down to a beauty contest. It was like a beauty pageant, and they had the two prettiest girls out on the dance floor, out on the stage at the end of the show, and they shine the spotlight on one and they shine the spotlight on the other, and they're waiting to see whoever makes the biggest noise is going to get the title, and that's pretty much what happened. I think it was all decided right there. Some people say it was already decided, and I don't think it was. I remember I didn't find out till the very next day what was going on.
Well, for what it's worth, I thought you were the prettiest girl that night because I was cheering.
Well, Lex was and I would always want people to know that whatever happened with me and Lex, when he could feel that I was more over than him, he was very gracious about it, and there was no politics or backstabbing or bad feelings, or he was very, very honest with me and said, you know what, you're just over more than me and you deserve it. And he was a real class act, Lex Luger.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. Let everybody know to pick up Hitman. It really is one of the best wrestling books I ever read, not just saying that because you're on here. I always think the wrestling books that are actually written by the wrestlers, they're a lot better because you can really tell that they're in the book.
Well, the only two people that actually wrote their books were me and Mick Foley, and they're the only two books worth a damn in all those wrestling books that you're talking about. When you say it's one of the best, I guess the only other one that I compare it to would be Mick's. I got a stack of them in my bathroom just to keep the door open. Dallas Page's book is at the top of the heap.
I have a hard time ever saying I like a book better than Foley's because that's up there. I'd say
at least Mick wrote his book, and it was a good. Mick wrote a damn good book. I love Mick's book, so I'll at least accept that as a fair answer.
All right, cool. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Yeah, I am the past, present, and future of professional wrestling. All you player-hating sons of bitches want to be me, and all your kids love to see me. And when I see them, I greet them with a smile, because Ted Hart goes the extra mile. God bless you.